Hello everyone and welcome back. What we did last time was that we made it so that the backend or the servlet would check if the name is filled, and if it isn't, it refreshes the page and gives an error message while preserving all the other input fields. And if the name is filled, then we get redirected to the results page, showing exactly what the user inputted for name, email, and message. Now let me do a quick demo here just to refresh your memory. So let's do an email message without the name. And we can see that we get an error message saying, please fill in the name. And notice all the other input fields are preserved, except for the check mark, which I forgot to do, which isn't important. And if I do fill in some name, and I click on submit, I get taken to the results page. Now, I said last time that we're going to do the search later, and we're going to do it through AJAX. And that's what this video is about. I'll do this part. I'll make whatever you type in here show up on results.jsp with AJAX. So without further ado, let's get into it, shall we? Before we do anything about AJAX, so just to clarify here, I will not be using the native AJAX. I will not be using the XHTTP stuff. What I will be using and what I will be demonstrating in this video is how to use jQuery. Because why write your Java project in Vim when you have Eclipse and IntelliJ? So jQuery provides a very nice interface for us to use AJAX, and I like to use that. And before we can do anything, we have to import jQuery because it doesn't come with the it doesn't usually come with the files. For my project, I do have it because I saved it locally here. But for you, you probably don't have it. Just Google and look for jQuery CDN. And go into W3 Schools here. Scroll down. And you can simply use the Google CDN. Copy this line and paste it into your head. The head tag, not literally your head. Like that. But since I already have it down here locally, I'll delete that. But you guys will need this. All right. So AJAX is JavaScript, and the way that we use it. First of all, how do we write JavaScript in this file? We do it with a script tag, like so. And in between, we can write JavaScript functions. Now, I want to, what I want the function to do here is, I want the function to take whatever I input in this input field, send it to the servlet with AJAX, and then make things show up on the results page. So how do we do that? To declare a JavaScript function, we type in function, and that declares a JavaScript function. You can see Eclipse highlighted this function keyword here. And I'm going to call this function doSearch. This is a JavaScript function. And the jQuery AJAX syntax goes like this. First of all, $sign. That indicates we're using jQuery. And then .ajax. Parentheses, and then bracket. Now in here, there are a few key fields that you need. The first key field that you will need is the URL. The URL is the servlet that you want to communicate with. And in this case, demo servlet, because I want to send the contents of this input field to my demo servlet. So let's call it demo servlet. And recall again, it's not dependent on the class name or anything. It's dependent on this annotation here. So if I change this to demo servlet 1, you'll have to change the URL to demo servlet 1. But we're not going to do that. We're not going to make things weird on purpose. The second field that you need would be the data field. In the data field, you just type data in the open bracket. And you might be seeing a pattern here. This kind of looks like some kind of JSON format, and you'd be correct. This is a kind of dictionary where it's a key and value relationship. And in the data, what I want in the data is I want to type in search. Now, what is this search? Actually, I'll finish this line and I'll come back to explain it to you guys. Okay, what does this line do? This is basically the parameter that we are setting here. And the parameter name is search, and the value is search input.val. Now, this is jQuery syntax to get the value in the input field. This is the ID of the input field. So if I scroll down here, you can see that the ID equals search input. So I'm doing search input.val. Probably lowercase that. And of course, the next field, success, and that would be the callback function of AJAX. Here's how AJAX works in general. You first define what the URL is, and then what the data is, and then AJAX sends the data to the servlet asynchronously. What does it mean? Asynchronous means that the browser doesn't wait for this AJAX thing to get a response from the servlet. It just moves on. It doesn't wait. And that's precisely why you need a callback function, because a callback function is essentially what to do after you get a response sometime in the future. And it also has a parameter here, and you can name it whatever you want. And you can even not have one. But I can name it return value, all right? And that will be whatever the servlet gives us back after we do some processing over there. And just for the sake of demonstration, I'll do console.log return value, so you guys can see what it is. So this is all you do for a jQuery AJAX. It's very simple, much simpler than all the XHTTP stuff where you have to append, you have to make the URL on your own, and that's just really annoying. But it handles everything for you. And since we're passing stuff in as parameters, we can basically keep mostly the same code on the servlet side. Now, what do I mean by that? In order to get the search value here, the search parameter, all I need to do is I'll just do string search string equals request.get parameter, and the key here, the argument here, will be whatever this is. Will be this part. This is the key. So in this case, it's search. Now I can change this to anything. I can change this to headcp, and I'll just have to change this to headcp. So there isn't any special keyword, nothing of that sort. The naming is completely up to you, and that's how we get the search input. But now we have a problem, because when we click on the search button, so the form and the search, they're two separate things. They're not related, and that's why I put them side by side like this. And what if when I do search, I only want to do search? I don't want to process any of the name, email, or message. So I don't want to do all this if I'm only doing something with search. How can I do that? How can I know that the call is coming from AJAX and not the form? And the way to do that is to add some kind of identifier, identifying parameter. So in this case, I can add a parameter called is from AJAX. Now also, this is nothing special. This is not a special string It's just, I just decided to name it, it's from AJAX. And we can give it a solid 1, a constant value. Because it's only used to identify that we're using AJAX. The value itself doesn't mean anything. And then what we're gonna do is that we're gonna come over here and we can do string is AJAX equals request.get parameter is from AJAX. And you might be able to see, you might be seeing what I'm doing here. So I can basically check if the string is AJAX is null, or rather isn't null, and isn't empty. And if the string isn't null and isn't empty, I know that the request is from the AJAX, not the form. And then I can move these into the if statement and leave all that behind. Actually, I'm going to put all of these, all the name and stuff, into an else statement. All right. So now we do the same thing here. Now we have what the user is searching for. What we can do is set an attribute. So let's do string. Let's do this search result string equals. Actually, I don't even have to do this. I can just do request.set attribute search results, and then the object would be, I'm gonna type out a message. I'll do your query is plus search string. And by doing this, you are setting a new attribute into the request object. And we can leave all the other stuff intact. So now the logic of this servlet is, we first set the next page to results.jsp, and we first check if the if this request is coming from AJAX or from the form, because we want to handle them separately. And if it's from the AJAX, and we check it by first checking if it's null or not, and then we have to check if it's empty or not. It has to satisfy both. And only then we get the search string with request.get parameter search, which is what I did here. And you define what the keys are and what the values are for those. There's no keyword, there's no special word, secret word, no, nothing. You define everything here. And I'm setting a new attribute called search results into the request object so we can get it later on. And then we skip over all these because I want to deal with the form and the search separately, and we go straight to the next page. Now let me show you what's going to happen here. Nothing happens because we didn't hook up the button to the AJAX function. Silly me. Forgot about this, but what you do is you go down to the button here and you add a onClick equals do search. Now let's refresh the page and something should happen. Yep, you see something happening. So at a glance, you might think that dispatcher.forward has failed because the page isn't going anywhere. But in fact, what happened was dispatcher.forward simply, it took results.jsp, it compiled it on the server side, and then converted it into a huge string and literally sent it over to AJAX to process. And you can see here because I'm now printing this return value to the console, and you can see what's in the console. It is literally the next page in string format. Now, how can we make use of this? how can we display the new page? So I want to again just add to how it exactly works here. I'll walk you through. First of all, we define what next page is. It is results.jsp, and it checks if it's AJAX or not, and which it is in this case. So it goes to string equals search string, gets our search input, it sets the attribute, and then it gets the dispatcher, and then it forwards it to the next page. But since we're using AJAX, the forward is not going to work. What it does instead is that it takes results.jsp, it compiles all the JSP code in results.jsp, turns it into a huge string, and returns it to AJAX to process. And as you can see here, I did console.log, and this is literally in the log, the next page. And take notice here, the JSP code, they're not there anymore because they were compiled on the back end and taken out. Now, how cool is that? And you can see that name here, it's null because we were only doing search, so we didn't specify any of these. And then when you try to read it in results, they'll simply be null. And it says null here. So we're getting back in AJAX a finished page, but only in string format. So how do we turn it into how do we display it to the user? And the way we can do that is simply by quite literally deleting everything from the current page, and then replacing it with the new page. So $HTML basically signifies everything in the HTML tag. It empties everything out. And then it adds whatever the return value is, which in this case, literally the next page in between the HTML tags. And then it loads the page again. So let's try it, shall we? Let's type in some random stuff. And let me close out the console here and press this. And look at this, we're on the next page. But take note that it still says index.jsp because we didn't actually navigate to the next page, because what we did is we simply replaced everything between the HTML tags with the entire next page and refreshed it, sort of. So let's try that again. Try. And you can see we're on results.jsp. But wait, this is still a placeholder. Well, that's because we didn't really add anything to it. So let's revise the JSP in results.jsp. So string result equals request dot get parameter. And what was it called? Actually, hold up. Get attribute. There we go. Get attribute. Search results. Why search results? Because we did it here. And again, we have to cast it into string because when you're doing set attribute, you can set an object. But since I set this, so I know it's a string, I can cast it to a string. I can downcast it to a string explicitly. And we simply add the variable here, equals result. And now when we go back and do stuff, and look, there you go. That's how you do things with AJAX. The last thing I want to talk about when it comes to AJAX is synchronous versus asynchronous. Let's say I have a console.log down here that says hi. In an asynchronous, which is a typical AJAX call, the AJAX will send the data as parameters to this servlet, and then it's just going to keep executing. It's going to go to console.log hi, and everything keeps happening. And then when the servlet returns something, this callback function will be called. Between the time that the data was sent out to the servlet and the time the servlet responds and calls this callback function, the users can do whatever else they want to do on the web page. And that's the meaning of asynchronous. I like to use this analogy of showering. Before you shower, you typically turn on the tap first to get the cold water out and then get hot water flowing, right? And I like to say that an asynchronous AJAX is like when you open up the tap, and when you're waiting for it, you don't just freeze there. You go and brush your teeth or you do something else instead. And then when you feel the heat or the steam, and only then you go back and you start showering. That's asynchronous. And synchronous is that when you open the tap and you wait for the hot water to come out, you just freeze there. And you don't do anything else. You're just staying there, not doing anything else, and just waiting for the water to turn hot, and then do other stuff. Let's say, and then shower, do whatever you want. But the point is, the time that you're waiting, if you're asynchronous, you go and do something else. But if you're synchronous, you just stand there and wait and do nothing. All the other tasks will be put off until the water is warm. So that is synchronous. That is the main difference. So when it comes to synchronous AJAX, after we send the data, we just wait here. The entire JavaScript, the entire web page actually waits here. Waits for the servlet to respond and call the callback function, does whatever it does in here, and only then we get console.log hi. We get hi printed. So that's the main difference. Now I also know that in your labs, you're asked to use AJAX a little bit differently. And I want you guys to figure that out on your own. I don't want to spoon feed everything to you guys. But I'm going to give you guys a hint. Look into this thing called a session variable. Anyhow, this is the part 2 of this 2-part series talking about JSPs, servlets, and AJAX. I hope you enjoyed the video. Give me a like if you liked it, dislike if you disliked it, I guess. And if you're in 201, don't forget to subscribe for more course content. And don't forget, it is my mission to bring you the best education that you can probably only buy by watching YouTube ads. Thank you so much. Have a nice day, and I'll see you next time.